Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shay. If you're new here, hello, welcome. In today's video, we are talking all about desensitizing. What is it? How do we do it? What goes on with the brain inside the equine mind? Is that a sentence? Is that a thing? So for today's video, I do have my kiddo in the room with me. If you hear her squawking, that will be why. Let's just start off with what is desensitizing? What is despooking? All these other terms that go around. There's especially been a lot of terms on TikTok lately about the kind of more proper way to desensitize horses, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Desensitizing to some people is just getting a horse to stand still when faced with a certain object. To me, I want to teach the horse how to remain calm, how to react correctly to a scary object. There is a term that's gotten very, very, very popular on social media, specifically on TikTok. That is flooding. Flooding is a very interesting word because I feel like it's got a multitude of different definitions right now. Some people think that having just any sort of reaction to one object is flooding, and that's not the case. For my personal opinion, I believe flooding is giving a horse a object that they're scared of and not giving them an opportunity to escape or have a break or have a release from said object. The other term is learned helplessness. I feel like this is another one that gets kind of thrown around without people actually knowing the correct term. Learned helplessness to me is kind of just what it is. It being a learned behavior, so it's something that the horse has been taught. Helplessness, meaning that it's completely helpless. There's nothing that the horse can do to prevent a certain outcome. A lot of times when it comes to desensitizing, some people do give their horse just a learned helplessness aspect instead of it actually being encouraging the horse to think about the object and learn how to respond to it. So in that case, the horse might just completely not react to it at all and look like, okay, cool, it's standing still, right? That right there is a freeze response, and we'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. But for a good example, I think that tying bags to a saddle should never be the first step. That to me is more of a flooding and creates more of a learned helplessness response instead of actually going through proper steps. Again, I just want to say this is my opinion. This may not be other professionals in the industry. I totally get that people have their own methods, and if you don't agree, that's fine. I'd love to know people's opinions down in the comment below if you agree with me or not. Let's have a discussion. The reason that I don't love just immediately tying bags to a saddle, I don't mind tying bags to a saddle. And I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't want that to be the first thing that we do. What I might do first is have a bag tied up to something outside of the pen. I might be working with Penny inside of her round pen. While I'm working with her, I've got Garrett messing around with a plastic bag, or I've got it tied to the trailer and the wind blows. I'm kind of getting her to stay occupied with me while a scary object is doing something a distance away. From that point, I might bring the scary bag over, let her kind of smell it, investigate, see what she thinks about it. As soon as she investigates, I'm gonna back off. I'm gonna go back and do whatever we were doing before, because I don't want her to think, okay, so I reached out, I made this effort to reach this scary thing, but now it's still coming at me. So I want to make sure that she gets that break, both mentally and physically, away from the object so that it's not something that's continuously at the forefront of her mind. After that, I'll start to incorporate it more, whether it's tying it to a lunge whip or getting it to where I can rub it all over her body, and then maybe get it to where I can finally tie it to the saddle. It's about taking the steps to make sure that your horse is calm and fine and accepting of everything, not just accepting the fact that they can't do anything about it. I mentioned a little bit the freeze response, and a lot of people have heard about fight or flight. It's kind of a given thing. When it comes to any animal that's a prey animal, there's fight or flight. Are they gonna fight back? Or are they gonna just leave? A lot of times, horses' first responses are just leave. However, we can get to the point that if we push them too far past their limit, they hit that fight response. They're gonna start lashing out, they're gonna bite, they're gonna kick, they're gonna buck. Either that, or they could just completely shut down. And that's our freeze response. This was something that I didn't really know a whole lot about until this tip challenge, until working with Penny and working with a wild Mustang and understanding that, okay, just because their ears are relaxed doesn't mean that they're actually processing everything that we're trying to teach them. If you're watching your horse and you're dealing with a scary obstacle, let's just go back to the plastic bags. You're taking that plastic bag and cool, you got it to quiet down, and you decide to just move right on to the next step, and you take that plastic bag and just start rubbing it all over their body. What is their face doing? Is there tension in the muzzle? Do you see a little bit of wrinkles? Do you see wrinkles around the eyes? Do the eyes look really droopy? Do you see the ears just straight out to the side and having no response? That all looks like, oh, it's a horse that's calm and relaxed. At that point, the horse is not registering anything that you're asking it to do. It's completely dissociating from the event that's happening in front of it. What I really love to see with Penny is she would very clearly make it very obvious when she was dissociating or when she was completely aware of what was going on. Oftentimes for her, I would look a lot at her ears. She had a ton of ear movement. Seeing any sort of flicking was huge. That to me said that she isn't shutting down. She's still present. She's still here paying attention. The other thing was her eyes. I love to see that her eyes were bright and open and she was watching and tracking, and it wasn't just like kind of droopy and looked like she was almost falling asleep. The other thing that you can track is their breathing. You can see changes in their breath. It's usually very subtle, but sometimes they might breathe a little faster or breathe a little bit slower, take some big deep breaths. All of that is telling you that they're put your face back in your mouth. Hey, stinklebutt. All of those changes in breathing can tell you what they're feeling. And even just a change in breathing in general is telling you that something is different. The other big tip when it comes to desensitization, and definitely with Mustangs and definitely with babies, Penny taught me so much, keep things short. They don't have to be extensive sessions. When you're working with that plastic bag, limit it to a 10-minute session, limit it to a 5-minute session. It doesn't need to be anything crazy long. They're still processing with those little itty bitty short sessions. You can always come back later in the day, you can always come back that evening, you can always go back the next day, but you don't want to build it up to where it's a 2-hour session and that horse is so mentally drained by the end of it that they can't physically, mentally, emotionally process anything that just happened. I've been listening to a lot of Warwick Schiller lately, and honestly, most people in the horse industry know who he is. What I appreciate so much about him is the scientific aspect behind his training. That to me is huge. I'm the kind of person that I want science, I want results, and I want proof behind just about anything that I do. Warwick Schiller talks a lot about the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is all about the fight or flight, the parasympathetic is all about relaxation. Both of these are controlled by the amygdala. When it comes to body language, going back to looking at how that horse is responding with their face muscles, I'm not gonna say it right. I'll almost guarantee it. Trigeminal nerve. It's one nerve that essentially controls all the different minor little functions of the face. It's often used by the sympathetic nervous system, which explains why a lot of the times when we see a horse that's really amped up, it might have really wide white eyes. You might see ears that are straight up forward. The nose is going to be huge. That's all one nerve that controls the entire face. One thing to note is that horses don't have a big frontal lobe of their brain. Humans do. That's where there's been a big conflict of interest when it comes to training. A lot of people have kind of associated horses more with a human brain and the way that they respond to things. Having a lack of a frontal lobe means that they can't hold grudges, they can't plan things out, they're not going to be vindictive. Horses want to respond to things in a way that keeps them safe. They're not worried about your personal feelings. They more just want to do the thing that keeps them safe, makes them calm and relaxed. A big thing for me growing up that was really hard was a lot of, you just need to tell this horse what to do in the right way. Some of the ways that I was trained growing up was a lot of kind of more the cowboy way of teaching them to just do what they're told. It didn't really matter how you got there, but the more that I learn as I'm growing in not only my horse's training, but my own, the way that I think and respond to things isn't how they think and respond to things. Taking into the consideration the fact that they have a lack of a frontal lobe, or at least a lack of a big frontal lobe, makes it more clear that they're not ever doing things out of spite. They're doing things because they don't understand. That goes kind of off the topic of desensitizing and more into training, but I still feel like that's something that should be discussed. A lot of people like to anthropomorphize is that the right word? Is that how you say it? A lot of people essentially like to think that horses work the same way that humans do, and they just don't. But by pulling that part out of the equation, by taking it away from us that a horse is never doing anything to be vindictive, we can focus more on the mechanical parts of training and teaching the correct response to a scary object instead of expecting the horse to just stand still all the time. So when it comes to the actual desensitization process, we want to balance sensitizing and desensitizing with both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. We don't want a horse to be completely desensitized to a whip. That's why a lot of times you'll be using a lunge whip when you're round penning a horse, and you turn around and kind of swing the lunge whip over their head, over their back, behind their legs, to get them to understand that the whip itself is not a scary object. It's a tool for us to communicate to them. If you guys are curious about more of the science that goes into a horse's brain and how it responds to scary objects, check out this link below, and make sure you check out Warwick Schiller. I also want to throw out that I am coming out with another video that is called DIY Desensitizing. It's gonna make sense, I swear. I was gonna do all of this desensitizing topic in one video, but the more I thought about it, the more it became this whole rabbit hole that I went down as far as researching desensitizing. But I'm really excited about that video, just to show you guys how I would respond with Penny being my example, especially because I haven't worked with her in a bit, so she might. Good Lord. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is all just my opinion. If you have a different opinion or you share the same views, comment down below. Let's have a discussion. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.